So Marketplace, Greg, let's get into it because I know this is, I actually had, so the gentleman that emailed us about the foreign buyers that Dave and I talked about last week from China, he actually responded saying, thanks for talking about it. He actually didn't want us to send him a mug. He's like, the carbon footprint is probably large enough already on that mug. I'll wait till I'm back in Ottawa. Very conscious human being. But then he actually said, did you see the Marketplace? And that's actually where I first heard about it. And then you sent the video. Then we talked about it. Obviously it's too long to play here, but Greg, maybe give us the Coles notes on what the Marketplace was about, and then we can kind of jump into our thoughts on it.
So CBC Marketplace a couple of days ago was basically talking about agent commissions or agents steering buyers away from certain homes because they weren't offering a full 2.5% commission, which has been traditionally the paid out commission for the last however long. I don't know, for a long time in Ontario.
40 years.
40, which is, crazy. And we've talked about it before, saying like, how can we justify getting that regardless of inflation and everything? If that was what it was 40 years ago, the prices of homes were $100,000, now a house is $1 million, we should still be getting that 5%. The jury's out on that. A lot of people think we're worth it. Some people think we aren't. So that's it. It's always individual experience and what Now, what I do want to, I had a bunch of comments that I was going to lay out, but then I spoke with my colleague Nicholas Crouch, who's in the office with me today, and he made a really great Reddit post, and I'm just going to read from his because it touches on everything in perfect fashion, I will say. So let me just get into the basics of this, the main points. Let me just see here. Some of the agents in Marketplace, definitely, it was terrible. I'm glad they were exposed. They shouldn't be doing what they were doing. So let's get into this note. Thoughts are, here's from Nick. My thoughts aren't a defense of the industry, just merely points I picked while watching this video in its entirety. Number one, they're generalizing about commission rates. They actually have no way of knowing what the average commission rate is for any one area. Even if the real estate agent is wrong, even the real estate agent is wrong saying it's 5% in Ontario always. That's just nonsense. Number two, it seems that the agent would be working for me and my best interests. That's what someone said in the interview. Incorrect. It depends what type of agency relationship there is. A client relationship affords a much higher degree of service and fiduciary obligation as opposed to a customer relationship. Number three, good for Realtor 1 doing his job. Can't wait to hear about Realtor 2 and 3 and how they've been fired. So there was one agent when the Marketplace people were undercover that said he was happy to take the 1% commission and he wasn't going to steer them away from the listing because of that. But he agreed that other agents probably would. And there's two others who were clearly steering the buyers away from the listing. You can see it. Everybody should watch this episode. It was wild. Number four. I think it's much easier for owners to have a rough idea of price on their home now more than ever, but unfortunately, access to a little bit of information makes everyone think they're a professional. Without knowing the exact home, it's very possible that the home had been overpriced. That comment comes from the seller of a home that was listed by herself, saying that, no, I know my house is worth what it is. I priced it according to my studies and everything. It's, I think we said that earlier. Sure, you can do that, but do you really know what it should be priced at? If you haven't had any professionals in through your home, how can you consider yourself? How do you know if it's priced well if you're not a professional in the industry? I agree 100% with that. Number five, there's some great examples of rates in different countries. The only issue is that the average prices are completely different than here. And in the way that homes are sold, different, like it's different all over the world. Slovenia is roughly $300,000 average. South Korea would be around 100,000. Australia is almost $1 million. So, what he says at the end here, I guess I'm getting at is, yes, there are absolutely horrible people in the industry. Commissions are just one part, I think, of a larger puzzle that needs to be fixed. So there's actually a follow-up. There was a response here asking Nick about the agency thing, saying a client relationship, what type of agency relationship. He says, I'd love some more explanation on this. I've never heard of a customer relationship with a realtor. As far as I can tell online, it doesn't exist in practice for a buyer. I thought that was especially interesting. So we need to talk about that another time too. The client and customer relationship with agents?
So I think for everyone that's listening, to give a little bit of a Coles Notes of the start of what this episode for CBC Marketplace is for sale by owner. She listed her house in Toronto, in I think Vaughan, busy area, but listed the house offering 1% commission to the buyer agent, and that was it. And then it stood, sat on the market. The marketplace investigator with hidden camera called up random agents to have them take them through, set up the criteria to match exactly to what this property is, to see if they would be shown it, if they would be, what kind of information or feedback they'd receive. And to Greg's point, the first guy didn't care about that it was only 1% commission, was happy to show the property. The other two were terrible agents and directed people blatantly away from the property and made up reasons why they wouldn't show it, or that it wasn't wasn't suitable.
Yeah. I suppose I should have said that before I started talking about everything else. Hey, David, thank you.
No. I mean, no.
Let's reverse that.
Yeah.
No one knows the story yet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you said, it is a good episode to certainly watch. And there are a lot of, we've talked about them before. There's a lot of, in every industry, there's a lot of crummy people in every industry that don't put their clients first and look at their bottom line first. And in the case of this, the two that they showed, but there's also a lot of information missing, like Nick was pointing out on this as well. What type of buyer arrangement they have, whether, anything like that. What the actual comparables, like you said, was it actually priced properly? Yes, it's out of the market for a while, but it's kind of being left out of what comparables were being used in order to price that property and where she derived that purchase price or sell.
And that's the thing too. Like at the end of the episode, it says so her house was on the market for 3 months and the right person came along at the right time and she got basically close to asking price. Sure. Now, so there's another thing. Does that mean in those 3 months in Vaughan, because it looked like it was clearly beginning of spring, summer market or whatever, and we know that prices were going up steadily. So did her house suddenly come up in value because of the market? Was everything selling $200,000 more after the time that they started that interview until the time that it was done? Mm-hmm. That's another factor. Who knows?
So what bothered me about the episode, I think I always like hidden camera stuff like that because you get to see, true intentions of people. But I found that the episode itself was almost steering in its own right. Like they were looking for,
totally.
They knew what they were looking for, and they were basically finding agents that would do that. Like 3 is a pretty small sample size to use, I would say, from a realtor standpoint. And I also think that she's underestimating. Forget about the number, the 5%, but I think she's underestimating the home seller. I think she's underestimating the value that you do get in working with a realtor. Like she was saying that a home down the street got 20 showings and hers got 1. Well, the realtor probably invested $5,000, $10,000 into the marketing, which got those 20 people through the door. So it's not as simple as just throw a sign on your lawn and people are going to start knocking. Like there is a network that realtors have access to, not only your own colleagues and people that you've worked with in the past and existing clients and all of that, but there's also money that you're investing up front. You might be putting, $3,000 to $5,000 into the listing without having any guarantee it's going to sell, right? And that's a risk you're taking as a real estate agent to list that property. So by not taking that risk or by not investing in a real estate agent, like it is an investment. You're investing in them X amount % of your sale to get it sold quickly and at top dollar. That's essentially, in my mind, what you'd be using a real estate agent for. It took her 3 months, right, to sell her home. It might have taken 3 weeks if she had used an agent that priced it properly and got the right people through and so on. Like a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, a lot of selling a home is getting people excited about potentially living there. Like that is your job. And if you're just putting a sign on the lawn and waiting for people to show up, well, nobody's getting excited about your house. Nobody's interested in living there. Nobody cares really, right? It has to be in front of the right people that are going to get others excited to maybe potentially live in that home and be a homeowner. So I think there was a lot of gaps in the story. I think, as you said, like agent 2 and 3 were, clearly trying to not go see the property. But even when they were just calling people asking about their commissions, like If someone calls you today and says, what's your standard commission? Well, 4 to 5%. Like it's just you're obviously going to get that answer because you're not investing any time into that real estate agent. So why would you expect someone that you're cold calling to invest 2 hours of their time to educate you on listing your home when you could hire them and they'll give you all of their expertise, you know?
If someone cold calls me and asks me directly, like in the first conversation, what's your commission rate? My answer to them is this: it depends if we sit down and have a conversation and decide that we want to work together.
Right.
That's all I say to them. They say, so is it 5? Is it 2? I'm like, I'm not answering that question. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to work with you. You just called me and you're asking me about my commission. I'm like, based on that alone, I already don't want to work with you. I go, so why don't we sit down? And if I say it like that, usually they're like, oh yeah, when I say it that way, you know, it's like you can't, people come in being aggressive about rates. Then why am I going to want to waste any time with a person like that? I know that it's going to be a nightmare from the first step, right? I know not everyone's, been doing it long enough or has the kind of business set up where they can decline those calls. But I mean, they should let those people sell their homes on their own. Let them do it if they don't see our value.
I think there was, I think Nick made some very good points. And I think one of his last ones that there are a number of, there are issues in the industry that, do need to get sorted out. I thought the biggest takeaway on my end of that whole episode was actually near the end, where it was trying to reach Korea, trying to reach Rico, trying to reach their MPP. Yeah, and brutal. They were basically like none of them responding, none of them giving a coherent response or even picking up the phone and conversing with them. I thought that was very intriguing, like that Korea and Rico were just like, file a complaint if you want. And that was it.
I mean, they did send a letter to every real estate agent in Canada saying about that specific tactic.
Yeah,
for sure. But it wasn't, but they didn't have a conversation with the individual that was raising a concern. It was, that was doing this.
We're making assumptions though, that that's their responsibility is to respond to that individual person forming a complaint. I mean, they may have their own processes. And I mean, we're also getting, like I said, we're getting it from a news source that's specifically trying to expose them. So, I mean, they might've made one call, got a voicemail and been like, well, we're done. We're not trying again. They didn't answer, we don't know all the facts.
I do agree. I will say that if they didn't pick up the phone and have a conversation and they just sent an email out or a newsletter out to every realtor, means that they actioned what was being told to them, but without actually conversing with the individual, with the investigative reporter from CBC to discuss it further, what kind of actions they may be taking or things that they've been seeing in the market. Like there wasn't really any
back and forth
follow-up and clearly there wasn't. Otherwise, I feel like they would have been included. I thought that was and the MP not taking responsibility or, and just sending it back as well and not really responding at all. That's what I thought was surprising. It was kind of just a running around in circles.
That whole marketplace, like I agreed with a lot of it. Like, the basis of it was there, but like you said, Dave, there was so many things that were missed. Like you could do an 1.5-hour documentary on that shit.
I actually went back to the end of the video because it just basically cut off. And I was like, that can't be the end of the episode, is it? Like it just kind of like, she was like, and then we sold our home and then bloop, it just stopped. I was like, what is that? That can't be the end. There's got to be some sort of summary or conclusion. Like what's going on here?
Anyone listening right now, I want everybody to watch that because, it's not to say that it doesn't exist, but I also want everybody listening. If you have never sold a home before, or if you haven't bought a home, whoever you meet, and I advise you to meet more than one person, ask them these questions. Ask them these questions and ask them why. Tell the agent, go like, why? Why do you charge 5%? If they can't answer you in a way that makes you understand why they should be paid that much or shouldn't, then they should not be in the business, period, as far as I'm concerned. Just ask them the question. People, buyers and sellers do not ask the question enough. It's like they're afraid. They're just like, take me by the hand, and then they just don't, they're not investing enough time in learning from the people that they're supposed to be getting the sound advice, the best advice from. And that's what I find frustrating. It's the people that have bad experiences. A lot of them put themselves in that situation with the wrong people because they don't ask the right questions. So follow to a rep and ask the right questions.